We're under a weather alert for a dangerous heat wave. The worst times to be outside and which areas could see a 110-degree heat index.
Maryland school leadership under fire.
Who's taking responsibility for all these glaring leadership failings?
Why new contract talks with the superintendent were delayed as Fox 45 News Project Baltimore looks back on the issues facing the system. A lack of resources and response from elected officials leaves a West Baltimore community fed up.
I've never seen it this bad.
New tonight, how they're taking matters into their own hands ahead of next year's election. The fire chief is the latest on a long list of interim and acting city leaders. How a lack of permanent leadership is impacting services you rely on.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. We are following new developments surrounding 3 court cases with implications here in Baltimore and at the national level.
Still no verdict in the trial of a Squeegee kid accused of murder. Why the jury didn't meet to deliberate today.
Former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby plans a foreign retreat just 3 weeks before her federal trial. Fox 45 News asking whether she's legally allowed to leave the country this close to the trial date.
And Hunter Biden's plea deal is rejected as he faces 3 charges in federal court. We begin there in the Delaware courtroom this afternoon. Republicans have been calling the plea deal a sweetheart deal, and it's now on hold.
National correspondent Christine Frizzau has the fallout as the judge wants another explanation.
A deal on the brink of collapse, now on hold. Defense attorneys for Hunter Biden and prosecutors now left to come to terms on details they thought were hammered out 5 weeks ago. Hunter Biden's agreement to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and avoid prosecution on a separate gun charge stalled when Judge Mary Ellen Noreika asked if he would then be immune from prosecution for other crimes, including those related to representing foreign governments. When prosecutors said no, Hunter Biden's attorneys called the deal null and void. A more limited deal agreed to for a time, but the judge wanted more specifics, including on the scope of the immunity and on her role in the case.
It's very telling that the judge intervened here and said basically, no, I'm not going to approve some sweeping blanket deal. I mean, that tells you that the court has serious concerns about other potential charges here.
Thank you all for coming today.
It's a deal House Republicans have argued was far too lenient. 2 men in charge of the IRS investigation backing those claims on Capitol Hill last week.
So help you God.
Yes, I do. I do.
Joseph Ziegler and Gary Shapley claimed evidence they gathered warranted felony tax charges, which were not brought, asserting Hunter Biden got preferential treatment because of who his father is.
Americans should not have to accept 2 tiers of justice in this country.
House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith on Tuesday asking the judge to reject the plea deal, writing the specific concerns raised by the whistleblowers call into question the investigation and prosecution of this case. The White House issuing this response.
Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and this was a personal matter for him.
In the end, Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty on the 2 tax charges, which he plans to reverse when the agreement is updated, which we expect will take about 2 weeks. One sticking point here, prosecutors told the judge there is another investigation into Hunter Biden that is ongoing. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Republican lawmakers are taking to Twitter to react to the news, many of them praising the judge's decision. Let's take a look at what some of them are saying right now. Here we have it. This is coming from Representative Elise Stefanik out of New York. The White House is desperately trying to distance Joe Biden from his family. This one coming in here from Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. We all know if Hunter didn't have the last name Biden, he wouldn't be getting a sweetheart deal. But again, that's on hold right now. I'm sorry. And this one coming in from Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker. What we know, the IRS whistleblowers testify Hunter Biden got a sweetheart deal from his dad's DOJ. But again, that's on hold. Well, Democrats have been largely quiet. Some, in fact, are downplaying the situation, saying it has nothing to do with the president.
Obviously, there's more that we're going to learn about, what Hunter did or did not do, but that's completely separate from Joe Biden. There's been no evidence presented that this has anything to do with the president. Anyone who's been a parent knows that sometimes our kids do stuff, and that has nothing to do with us.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Congress should continue investigating Hunter Biden for alleged influence peddling? So far, 91% of people who voted say yes. You can vote right now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
The prosecutor in the Hunter Biden case is Leo Wise, a former assistant U.S. attorney from Maryland. He was pulled to the Delaware office after being demoted from his position leading the Maryland Public Corruption Unit in March. At the time, Wise was the prosecutor in the federal case against then Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. She's facing 4 charges.
Well, Mosby is leading a retreat to Jamaica in October, just 3 weeks before the trial is scheduled to begin. She's advertising the trip on social media. Fox 45 Mackenzie Frost has more on the retreat and the questions about the timing of it.
Hey, sis. Marilyn Mosby undressing women of color in her latest business venture. For the Invest in Me Spirituality Women's Conference. Mosby planning to take 25 professional women to Jamaica for what she's calling an intimate, holistic, transformational experience. The dates? October 5th through the 9th. 3 weeks later, on October 31st, jury selection scheduled to begin in her federal perjury and mortgage fraud trial. The law is clear. Anyone released back into the community while awaiting federal trial cannot knowingly leave the federal judicial district where they live without getting permission from the court or a probation officer. It's not clear if Mosby got that permission, so Fox 45 News sent questions to the court asking, is international travel permitted given Mosby's pending federal trial? So far, no answer.
Partner of Mahogany Elite Enterprises.
Mosby's trip is advertised through her Mahogany Elite Travel, which is one of the businesses at the heart of her 2 perjury charges. Federal prosecutors say Mosby lied when she checked this box on a form to withdraw $77,000 without penalty from her city employee retirement account, claiming she suffered COVID-related financial hardships. Court filings from January show Mosby's defense team claimed she did plan to run her travel businesses before leaving office, but the pandemic ruined those plans. But that's the opposite of what Mosby's own spokesperson told Fox 45 News in 2020, saying Mahogany Travel was a long-term venture and she did not have plans to run it or any other businesses while in office. In January 2022, just days after Mosby was indicted, we questioned her attorney at the time about the evolving stories.
Her spokesperson said it wasn't.
I don't know
Was she
how
wrong?
you define operational. I'm telling you those businesses were running and they were being pursued and they were legally on the books. Next question.
In which business was it?
Next question. Mosby's other 2 charges are rooted in her 2 Florida vacation homes. Federal prosecutors argue she did not disclose a federal tax lien on her Baltimore home when signing for her mortgages. Again, we questioned Mosby's attorney about the lien that had been widely reported in the media.
According to the indictment, the IRS sent them each a letter. So you're saying that she didn't open the mail?
I looked for the tax lien myself. Could not find it.
I have a copy I can show you.
I know you do. You know how we found it? We got it from the press. She did not know, she did not lie, and that'll come out at trial. I think that's it, right? That's it. All right, thank you.
Mosby's defense, her husband, City Council President Nick Mosby, was in charge of the couple's finances and did not tell her about the tax lien. Meanwhile, just last week, Marilyn Mosby filed for divorce from Nick Mosby. While Marilyn Mosby seems prepared to sit beachfront in early October, shortly after her return, she will sit before a jury as they decide her future. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News has done extensive reporting on the charges facing Marilyn Mosby and the developments leading up to her federal trial. You can find all of our coverage online at foxbaltimore.com.
Well, jury deliberations were on pause today in the murder trial of a 16-year-old Squeegee kid accused of shooting and killing 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds near the Inner Harbor last July. One juror failed to show up in court, though, this morning, citing an illness. The defense called for a mistrial while the prosecution is willing to wait it out until that juror returns.
I don't begrudge defense counsel for not wanting that. They're obviously, hoping for a mistrial. They're hoping that this is a holdout juror.
Well, defense attorneys told Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor the request for a mistrial was a bit of a gamble.
I knew that if we didn't make the request, the state would make the request, and it would probably be granted. But if we did make the request, it would probably be denied.
Why would it be granted if the prosecution requested it, but not if you requested it? Are you saying the judge would favor?
I'm not saying anything, but we seem to know how cases go from time to time.
The judge denied the defense's request, saying, quote, "We used too many resources to try this case. If the juror recovers and returns to court tomorrow, deliberations will begin at 9 a.m.
We're coming up on an election year, and some local races are just starting to take shape. In the city, current City Council President Nick Mosby is looking to run for re-election. Councilman Zeke Cohen is challenging him. Now, some West Baltimore residents say they're fed up with current leaders and they want change. Fox 45's Jeff Abel was at a community meeting this evening. He joins us live with one community's frustrations. Jeff?
You know, frustrations do appear to be growing in some communities where they feel the city has abandoned them. But while many communities may be down, they are hardly out. In West Baltimore, residents gathered in a community park to say they're tired of being forgotten.
We have 8 liquor stores, but no food market. Life expectancy in Roland Park is 85. Life expectancy here is 65.
Here in the Matthew Henson community, one of the largest communities in the city, their supermarket vanished 8 years ago. Their recreation center is long gone, and the library hasn't been open since spring.
Why in the hell would you let a library be closed at Penn North since April? What we are attempting to do is try to get a handle on how do people feel.
At a grassroots meeting tonight, community leaders began plotting a path toward change. They've crafted a report card and are asking all 36,000 residents here to score how politicians have handled 20 critical issues in this community.
We think this will enable a voter to intelligently decide whether or not that person has done a good job or not done a good job.
I'm supportive of making a serious change in this community.
By grading politicians, organizers believe it'll spur new candidates for public offices and new attention from residents when they go to the polls.
Basically, we're voting for people because of what fraternity they're in, what union they're in, what last name they have, but we're not doing it on the basis of substance of what they have done to serve the residents.
Is anybody else thinking about running for city council?
And I'm running for District 7.
With 10 months until Election Day, the clock is ticking. But in this community, residents are vowing to deliver change on Election Day. This community, they say, depends on it.
Enough people have concerns about this neighborhood. We think they're going to come away with and say it. We got to do better. We got to do more and better.
Well, their effort could prove to be an uphill battle. That community has traditionally had the lowest voter turnout of any community in the city. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
We are on weather alert through tomorrow and Friday, and we may even have to extend this into Saturday. We'll see. But for now, it's a heat advisory in effect during the day. Tomorrow, then Friday, an excessive heat watch that's in effect. And this is why. Take a look. Temperature is going to be about 95 to 100 or so for both Thursday and Friday. Last time we hit 100 was back in 2020. So it'd be several years if we do this. The problem is it's going to feel a lot hotter than it is because of, guess what, high humidity. And that allows you to not sweat, which means you cannot cool off, or at least your sweat can't evaporate. So you're going to have to take those heat tips in firm fashion for tomorrow. Going to feel as hot as about 103 during the heat of the afternoon. Also some severe storms possible. We're breaking it down hour by hour. My Weather Authority forecast.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, Mayor Brandon Scott nominates a new fire chief. A look at all the interim and acting leaders in Baltimore City and the impact that has on residents. Thousands of cars have been sold in Baltimore this year, many of them Kias and Hyundais. The city now joins a lawsuit against those companies, why some say that's not the right solution to the problem. And coming up after the break, Maryland State School Superintendent's contract is delayed. Project Baltimore looks into why.
We are taking a look at the scene of a house fire near Mondawmin as we follow this breaking news. This is along Clifton Avenue. You can see the large fire department presence there with the firefighters and the hoses, but it seems like crews have gotten the fire under control. We don't see any flames or smokes in this picture. We're working to learn more about what happened there. We'll keep you updated on air and on our website, foxbaltimore.com. A toxic work culture changing how test scores are reported and concerns over how tax dollars are spent. The Maryland State Department of Education has recently come under fire.
And as Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the state school board has now decided to delay a decision on whether to offer Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury another contract.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call today's meeting to order.
Maryland School Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury was absent at Tuesday's State Board of Education meeting.
So can you just tell us where Mr. Chowdhury is? Why he's not here today?
He's on vacation.
He is on vacation?
Even though, on this day, the board was scheduled to vote on renewing Chowdhury's contract. That is largely why former Maryland State Department of Education employee Robert Eccles was at the meeting, because he had a lot to say about MSDE's leadership under Chowdhury.
Who's taking responsibility for all these glaring leadership failings? I respectfully ask the board to rethink its working definition of brilliant and transformational leadership.
Eccles spoke during public comment.
Transformational leaders actually lead people and don't disparage them. They invite feedback and can take criticism without retaliation. Brilliant leaders prioritize delivering on time. They care more about collaboration than control.
Chowdhury's current contract ends on June 30th, 2024. The school board could have offered him a 4-year contract Tuesday, but instead chose to continue deliberating. Chowdhury has publicly stated he wants to remain on the job, but over the last few months, his future at MSDE has been challenged.
The ongoing unacceptable practices at MSD further embarrass the whole state.
Eccles, in May, first addressed the state board, testifying that 10 former MSDE employees recently wrote letters to the board calling for an independent investigation into what he called a toxic workplace culture, which is leading to high attrition rates. Chowdhury's office responded in a statement saying Eccles' information is incorrect and misleading.
And you've heard stories about a toxic culture in MSDE. That's correct.
But it's not just Eccles complaining about the work environment at MSDE.
That's right.
Brian Thompson runs the blog Informed Carroll County, a petition he posted on change.org calling for Chowdhury to resign quickly gathered more than 2,500 signatures.
Because I believe the Maryland State Department of Education is in a worse place now than it's ever been, and I don't see it getting any better.
This whistleblower, who we agreed not to identify for fear of retaliation, signed Thompson's petition. This person worked in a leadership position at MSDE under Chowdhury.
This is nothing but a cover-up.
And it's dishonest. It's hiding the ball. It's hiding the truth from parents.
Lawmakers, parents, and special interest groups like the Maryland Public Policy Institute have also spoken out.
This comes after the agency.
Project Baltimore, in April, broke the news that the Maryland State Department of Education, without informing the public, changed how it reports test scores, hiding much of the data behind asterisks. Parents and taxpayers can no longer see how many schools are performing on state tests. When Project Baltimore first tried to speak with Chowdhury about it, he locked himself behind a door.
Mr. Chowdhury, Chris Papps with FOX45. Can we ask you a couple questions about your department removing test scores from the website?
At the following state board meeting, 1 month later in May, Chowdhury did agree to speak with us.
No, we're
for 5 minutes. I gotta meet with the president.
But many of our questions
Just give me a moment.
were not answered.
This has all been laid out for you.
There's also this January audit of MSDE, released by the Office of Legislative Audits. The report issued 9 findings, ranging from issues with cybersecurity and bidding contracts to how MSDE approves state grants. The audit also found MSDE did not properly monitor how school systems use funding for the Blueprint, Maryland's education overhaul. But similar to other issues, MSDE declined an interview, but said in a statement Those assertions are false.
I naively expected this body would be spurred to conduct a third-party investigation after receiving first-hand accounts of abuse, harassment, and intimidation in a toxic workplace.
Eccles told Fox 45 he spoke at this meeting because he wants the state board to know what is happening at MSDE before it votes on Chaudhry's contract. Because Eccles says a lot is at stake.
This current MSD playbook will doom the blueprint to fall short of our expectations and cause many, many educational dreams to be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
A triple shooting today in a safe streets zone. An update on the victims as Fox 45 News continues to press Monsey on its violence intervention strategy.
And heat advisories and excessive heat watches are in effect for the end of the week. And just a friendly reminder, pretty serious business if you leave anybody or a pet in the car. When temperatures are expected like they're going to be, could within 30 minutes feel like 124 to 130 degrees deadly. I'm going to let you know when things are going to cool down. My Weather Authority forecast.
Well, it's been 24 days since the Brooklyn home shooting, and Baltimore police have not identified any of the shooters. On July 2nd, shots were fired at the Brooklyn Day block party, killing 2 people and injuring 28 others. Only 1 arrest has been made, a 17-year-old who's facing weapons and riots charges. However, that 17-year-old isn't charged with shooting anyone. At the scene, police found bullet casings from as many as 16 guns that could have been used, but as of right now, they have not named any suspects.
Well, since the shooting, Fox 45 News has been pressing city leaders for answers on the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement's role in the Brooklyn Day response. Monsey leaders tell us Safe Streets workers were at the Brooklyn Day block party, but they left before the shooting happened. They say those Safe Streets workers did mediate conflicts that night, but will not say what those mediations included, when they happened, or how they were reviewed. Fox 45 News has been working to learn what a mediation is for years, but Monsey has never given given us that information. Now, Safe Streets workers are not city employees. They work for either LifeBridge Health or Catholic Charities, the nonprofits that run the various Safe Streets locations throughout the city. Catholic Charities runs the Safe Streets site that responded to the Brooklyn Day shooting. Council members questioned nonprofit leaders during a hearing on the shooting earlier this month. It was revealed those mediations were never reviewed.
Has anybody in Muncie then in your agency reviewed those 5 incidents before?
No, we have not reviewed those that have been put in.
We don't know if they are also the same, if they're connected to this event, or whether or not they're also people of interest in this event.
I can't say if that's true or false.
Fox 45 News pressed the mayor on how mediations are tracked and reported last week, asking for a blank copy of the form workers fill out after those conflicts. We also wanted to know what defines a mediation, who oversees the documentation of conflicts, and what protocols are in place to ensure better communication among agencies about a potential threat. The mayor did not hand over any of that information, saying Safe Streets operations should not be made public.
Anyone that thinks that we're going to talk about an open investigation where someone could potentially be a witness in Baltimore, the city that we've seen witnesses killed, that's very irresponsible of anybody to do. We're not going to do that, period.
We also would like to know how Safe Streets workers are trained and how they clock in and out of their shifts. In January, Baltimore City handed over more than 450 pages worth of Safe Streets related contracts after Fox 45 News threatened legal action. The contract shed light onto the program and how it operates, but the names of the workers were redacted because Safe Streets says they're not city employees. They work for the nonprofit that operates their location. Fox 45 News also asked the mayor what the public is supposed to base their trust on when it comes to Safe Streets workers if no information is available about them. It's important to note police officers' information is made available to the public. That brings us to our question of the day. Should Catholic Charities be more transparent with the Safe Streets program? So far, 96% of those who voted say yes. To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Well, just today, 3 people were shot along Cherry Hill Road on the edge of the Cherry Hill Safe Streets zone. One of the victims, just 14 years old. Police say all 3 are expected to be okay.
So they completely ripped out like the ignition parts, took it apart, and then they broke my back window.
A Baltimore resident falls victim to a Kia theft in the city. Her questions for city leaders about what's being done to stop the trend.
And the Baltimore Fire Department has a new acting fire chief, the changes he's planning to make as he takes the reins.
We're following three big stories. A Baltimore police car is stolen, highlighting a trend of more than 5,000 car thefts each year. Or this year alone, at least. Why some argue city leaders aren't going after the root of the problem.
Closing arguments wrap up in the trial of a man accused of killing his pregnant girlfriend. Her family's emotional comments outside the courtroom today.
Mayor Brandon Scott names an interim Baltimore fire chief, bringing more than 30 years of experience within the department.
My vision for the city of Baltimore is to provide safe communities.
We opened this up, but we know that we have some of the best and the brightest here in Baltimore.
Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott nominated James Wallace to become the city's next fire chief. Wallace has led the Office of Emergency Management since 2020. Scott called Wallace the best choice when asked if a nationwide search was necessary to fill the vacancy. Now, he takes over nearly 8 months after Fire Chief Niles Ford resigned following a scathing report on the Stricker Street fire, which took the lives of 3 firefighters in 2022. Fox 45 News pressed Wallace on how he'll make sure a similar tragedy doesn't happen again.
Since that report's been released, all the acting chiefs that have been in the office prior to me getting here have moved that forward. They've looked very deeply at the internal BOI. There are other reports that were unrelated at the time that we were working on already, the department was already working on, and they are definitely moving forward with that.
Wallace's nomination just the latest appointment in what's been a months-long turnover period across several city agencies. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with some concerns over how that could be impacting productivity from those organizations. Keith?
Well, Mary, James Wallace is the mayor's choice to lead the fire department, but he remains the interim or acting chief until that nomination is approved by the Baltimore City Council, the process in filling another top city position. At Baltimore City Hall, filling vacancies for some of the city's top jobs, seemingly a slow go to get that job done. The issue back on the table.
Good morning, everyone.
With Mayor Brandon Scott today naming from within the department an interim Baltimore fire chief. His nomination, James Wallace.
For more than 30 years, Chief Wallace has dedicated his life to saving and protecting Baltimoreans and visitors to our community.
Wallace's nomination, just the latest election, another interim department head in what's been a heavy turnover period in recent months at several city agencies. There are almost a dozen city agencies still without permanent leaders, including the police department, the fire department, the Department of Public Works, and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MUNSE, all still holding an interim role. The matter,
I keep calling them quiet crises.
Even part of today's radio chatter.
The police department shortages are pronounced. We talk about that a great deal. But the fire department, the situation is happening now.
Tonight, David Williams.
This is no way to run a big city.
President of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, on what it means for a city this size to have so many interim department heads.
It absolutely affects city services because you want a director with long-term goals, long-term objectives, not an interim director who's only filling a seat and keeping a seat warm for a month or 6 months. And that's how the city suffers.
We are in a executive leadership crisis.
At a hearing in May, city leaders did not address the reason for so many departures, but they did address the problems the city faces in filling positions, among them a residency requirement, which requires directors of city agencies to live in the city.
Cities are going to have vacancies, but that's still no excuse. And Baltimore is going through a lot of struggles right now, and they need to get this right, and they need to have people in these positions.
Well, the mayor recently appointed Corinne Johnson as the city's director of the Department of Transportation after she served 8 months as interim director. She was sworn in last Wednesday. We're live tonight at City Hall. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
All right, Keith, thank you. Take a look at this. Shattered glass in the front door at Baltimore City Hall. It is the second time someone has vandalized that door this year. You can see the area blocked off by traffic cones and a crowd barrier this afternoon. Police say it happened after 11 a.m. They say officers saw a 42-year-old man charge the building, punching and kicking the door. The suspect has been taken to central booking.
The jury began deliberations this afternoon in the trial of Michael Robertson, accused of killing his pregnant girlfriend, Akia Eggleston, back in 2017. Well, today we heard closing arguments in court. Prosecutors say Robinson lied to police about his whereabouts on the night Akia went missing. The defense says the evidence is entirely circumstantial. Outside the courtroom, Akia's family says they are ready for a verdict.
It was really, really painful to hear the words, "She's dead. Her baby is dead. They're not coming back." Reality just, it smacked me in the face right there that she's not coming back. You know, this is the final say. This is just, you know, summing up everything that we've been waiting for.
The jury will continue deliberations tomorrow. It's unclear when a verdict could be reached. An unmarked Baltimore police vehicle, now one of more than 5,000 cars stolen in the city already this year. Over the past 28 days, Baltimore police are reporting nearly 1,400 auto thefts, an average of 49 cars every day. It is more than 4 times the amount of cars stolen during the same time period last year. Arch McGowan, the safety chair of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association, is tracking this issue very closely. He says just last week, a stolen car zipped through his area before flipping onto a sidewalk.
They're just running around and like it's a game to them, stealing these cars, and it has dangerous consequences. It's not a matter of, hey, if my car will be stolen. No, it's when. Your car likely will be stolen if you park it in a public place here in Baltimore City, if it's a Kia or Hyundai.
And McGowan says that social media challenge is showing how easy it is to steal Hyundais and Kias without a key has made things so much worse. Both car makers are offering free theft deterrent software upgrades for more than 8 million vulnerable models.
But one Kia owner who recently had her car stolen is questioning if city leaders are actually going after the root of the problem. Fox 45's Vincent Hill joins us live with her concerns. Vincent?
Yeah, Kai and Mary, Brunelle Knight came out 2 days before her birthday, only to find broken glass where her car was once parked.
According to Baltimore police, 312 Hyundais and 134 Kias have been stolen in the city this month alone.
We've had a departmental car that's been stolen with police equipment in it.
One of them, a 2018 Kia Optima, an unmarked Baltimore City police car, stolen just before midnight Tuesday.
The detective's going to be standing out there next to the broken glass.
Meanwhile, Brunelle Knight pointing out the broken glass left behind when her 2015 Kia Optima was stolen on North Paca Street sometime last Friday night.
I was so upset. Well, at first when I found out, I was trying to believe that I had parked somewhere else and that the glass didn't belong to my car. It just feels like a violation.
That violation right across from a city-owned surveillance camera.
They told me that it's not working, that it's spinning out of control, and that they tried to fix it, but they have not fixed it yet.
Mayor Brandon Scott joining a federal lawsuit against Hyundai and Kia, blaming the car makers and not the criminals, saying the companies have left Baltimore residents, quote, vulnerable to crime. Brunelle says the blame is on the city, which should be more focused on the criminals instead of the companies.
The city of Baltimore should be responsible as well for the amount of thefts. They should serve time. It should be looked at as any type of theft.
Now, Brunelle's car was recovered, but it only got worse. Her insurance company actually dropped her just a few weeks before because they sent her a letter saying she either needed to switch her key ignition to push start or they would not renew her policy. For now, we're live at BPD headquarters. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Well, this isn't the first time we've seen city leaders put the blame on a business for crime. Following the January mass shooting at the Edmondson Village Shopping Center that killed one teenager and left 4 others hurt, the mayor and some city council members placed blame at the restaurant where the shooting happened. At the time, they said the restaurant shouldn't have allowed the students to be there during the day, even going so far as to propose legislation to fine businesses who serve minors during the school day. Critics saying city leaders put the blame